Greetings, my dubs. I've neglected you too long, and so I made a pot of coffee and I decided that I need to just get this video done that I've been planning on doing for a while. I'm going to give you a reading of the Deathbed confession of the ranking Australian Satanist known as Frater 616. Frater, as in the satanic version of Father. It occurs to me now that I haven't poured my coffee yet, so let's go. What? Lemon? What? You're gonna go crazy? Just because I'm talking to the dubs again? Why do you do this to me? But that's fine, actually, because... Oh, damn it. Where's my coffee mug? Because... something I wanted to show you. Alright, now we're expecting... There's a good chance that the supply chain is going to take a big shit sometime this winter. Alright, and in order to prepare for that, I've been putting together this collection. I'm not going to bother focusing it. This collection of emergency food made up of mostly rice, you know, some junk stuff, peanut butter, canned meat, basil, because I can make my medicine out of basil. Couple of cooking tins. Alright, there's the canned heat, sterno flame, survival shot. I've had that for a while. And I'm not done collecting it either. There's some candles up there. See this thing right here? This thing, that is a solar water boiler. It uses the power of the sun to boil and sterilize water. I've been using it to make oatmeal for my children, and I've also got a couple solar cookers in the laundry room. I'm not gonna bother breaking that out. I've got some Patriot supply in one or more of my survival backpacks. Alright, I've got my survival backpacks are loaded up with like camping stuff and mostly warm clothing and warm emergency style bedding. Alright. I was supposed to get all jacked up on caffeine before I started this, but oh well, I've gone ahead and done it. Oh shit, I didn't start my timer either. I'm all out of whack. Anyway, so I just wanted to show you that and talk about it a little bit because it's extremely important that you be ready for what may be coming. This complete breakdown of the supply chain. We're already seeing it happen. I can't find basil anywhere. That's the thing that stands out in my mind the most. We do know that. Also, I've been stocking up on toilet paper a little bit. I mean, we can just hop in the shower. We've got a detachable shower head to wash our butt cracks with, but my children, they don't want to do that. They're embarrassed by the idea. So, to ease their minds, I stock up on toilet paper a little bit. Ease their minds and ease their behinds. Alright? So, Frater 616, I first heard of this from Jay Dyer, who of course, you know, is one of our most reliable resources of good scholarship and excellent conspiracy research. So, according to Golden Age of Gaia, Peter Narsagonin, or Frater 616, was an Aruba. He wasn't an Aruba. Was an Australian adept in the world of Satanism, which is synonymous with the Illuminati. He belonged to the Alpha Lodge in Sydney, Australia. Alright, and we all know what's going on in Australia right now. They are on... It's an authoritarian nightmare in Australia, and it's unbelievable that a Western nation, a nation as westernized as Australia, could go so foul. However, you know, we saw it happening in merry old England. Sadly, particularly with the great push to open up the doors to unsavory immigrants. That was when it hit them the hardest, but it's still on in full force. And there's been a lot of real ugly COVID bullshit enforcement in Canada as well. Here in the United States, we've had it the best, I think, in terms of coronavirus lockdowns. But anyway, but in Australia, it's easily the worst of any Western nation, certainly. Alright, they go on. Before he died, he wrote a 2-part manuscript detailing the activities of the Australian Satanists or Illuminati, which I've made a page on this site. I couldn't find it. So one of the reasons it took me so long to get up and do this was I wasn't sure that the manuscript that I downloaded is the correct one. It took me a while to look around and become at least reasonably convinced that the manuscript I have is that belonging to Frater 616. So why is this interesting? Why is this any better than any other deathbed confession? Well, in the words of Monsieur Dyer, pretty much everything that the author discusses has become a reality. The goals of top asshole Satanism have largely been achieved. I think you're going to find in this reading that the world which he describes is the world we live in, and that is the reason why I'm going to read this to you. Now, I'm going to take an enormous slurp of coffee and just yoink right on into it. And this isn't going to be fun either. Alright, if you're not interested in hearing all of this, just go watch Jay Dyer's synopsis of this letter. Jay Dyer gives an overview of it. He talks about points that he thinks are important because, frankly, it's teal deer material. Alright? To them, but we are going to read it. Now, before I begin the reading, my darlings, hold on, let me put on my excitement glasses. Glasses that don't block out blue light, so that it can wake me up and ruin my sleep later. So I can be awake enough to read this. What was I going to say? Right. Now, the things you're about to hear me say are not being advocated in this video. They are being tabled for your consideration, for our consideration. Alright? I do not endorse any of the things I'm about to read and say at all. I do not like that there are people like this in the world. I do not approve of them. I do not want them alive anywhere. So this guy, he died in 2004. Alright, so that's how old this deathbed confession is. And I rather wonder what he might have said if he had still been around for another, what was it, 15, 16, 17 years? Oh. Alright. I'm not going to enjoy this. By the way, I have no anticipation of pleasure in reading this trash. Satanism flourishes beneath the scintillating, midnight blue, wet streets and bedeviling, phosphorescent lights of Australia's glittering capital cities. Its practitioners are from all walks of life. Although marginal types and those with predisposing personalities have always and will always be important to Satanism and its leaders' ends, they are merely tools. their antinomian influence is now so pervasive as not to be readily noticed. Among the highest echelons are some politicians, medical doctors, high-ranking police officers, lawyers, advertising gurus, military men, media personalities, fashion models, and social workers. But we know this, don't we? Amongst the lowest, usually temporary, ranks are prostitutes, minor drug dealers, and a number of high school students. Some operate from the mists. Their victims are drip-fed straight amnesia by an assortment of mind control measures and psychological torture tactics that would leave any normal person dumb with the dawning apprehension that things are not as they seem, and they have not been for a long, long time. The most talented among them have lifestyles maintained on crime, but lacquered with a thin veneer of respectable professionalism and knowledge. They dress with elegance, timeless and calculating, networking and conspiring in a dream that money alone cannot purchase. Often their personalities have a force that distorts the contours of both judgment and of everyday perception. I cannot mention every name, but I will drop enough clues. The doctors refuse to say how long I have, but ellipses. I became involved in the whole sordid business in the 1970s, a decade noted for little beyond sartorial bad taste and crushingly optimistic fatalism. I don't know what optimistic fatalism is. The decade that began as a drug-crazed carryover from the 1960s soon bequeathed androgynous glam rock. Damn it. Sorry, I'm disorganized here. I need my watch so I know when to turn my camera over. Fuck. What the fuck? Seriously. What the fuck? God damn it. This isn't a live stream. I keep forgetting. I can turn it off. Edit that part out. Edit that part out. Cut that part out. There it is. Alright. If I'm too lazy to cut this out, you have my sincerest apologies. The decade that began as a drug-crazed carryover from the 1960s soon bequeathed androgynous glam rock, the Watergate scandal, and the shallow opportunism of rollerball science fictionism stalked the streets with a rejected furtiveness bred of cowering beneath the backdrop of the Cold War and dancing with the resurrected agonies of another Asian-based imperialistic guy. This guy, he writes like a teenager writing his first science fiction story, and that is annoying. It's annoying. Speaking of twisted personalities. I fell through a crack in reality, having deliriously wandered amid the human wreckage and reached certain spiritual conclusions. See, I told you, just when I talked about the story of Murray Farmer and Jizz Lane, I talked to you about how adolescent these people are, how taken with their own imaginations they are, and eager to impress. Eager to impress. And adolescent. I fell through a crack in reality, having deliriously wandered amid the human wreckage and reached certain spiritual conclusions. Well, haven't we all? In short, I do not know how I got here, but I know why. The 1970s were a dismal, incense-fueled time that only those who lived through it can appreciate. The comprehensive dismissal of values and the adoption of pornography as the aesthetic standard by which all endeavor was to be categorized left its impressionistic fingerprints on everybody's imagination, mine included. I guess that I analyzed and reacted differently. This is how I escaped the mundane, though through one of Western society's fault lines. Now this is written. It is using English or Australian spelling, so that at least somewhat increases its credibility. It's accurate. I've written for Australian clients, so I have some experience writing in Australian English. Credo quia absurdum. I believe because it's absurd. I began dabbling in the black arts as an alienated university student. It was 1971 when I attended my first meeting, only to be led into an existence of happiness, sexual acquisitive arousal, and comfort. Well, I mean, that's pretty much college that's college. Within a week of my meeting my Luciferian mentor, I was operating a number of travel businesses in Sydney and flying to international destinations at least 4 times a year. I had a Jaguar, city apartment, holiday home in the country, access to a yacht on Sydney Harbour, and women. I was young and considered to be an up-and-coming star within the shadowy twilight of the satanic infrastructure. The netherworld was at my patent leather-soled feet. The oily details are annoying, but this isn't fiction, or is it? My suits were handmade Italian, the cravats and neckties Chinese silk, and my nymphomaniac maids, French. They dressed like, I'll tell you this, the French women are not everything they're cracked up to be. They dressed like French maids and would often wake me with a lesbian show. See, I'm just like, as I'm reading this, I'm like, all of this would be so annoying to me. But somebody with this type of personality is just like, oh, not only do they want it, but they want to be seen having it. It's mostly about being seen having it. And that's just, I'm like, man, I want to be left alone. I don't want a bunch of fucking French maids coming in here fucking shit up. At that time, the United States-based Church of Satan was the very public face of a movement that had begun almost a century before and had culled its adherents from the Renaissance of magic, which had begun in Germany and flowered in England since the dying years of the 19th century. The Church of Satan was one of the front organizations for an ancient body whose very existence had never before been imagined. Now, this is something we have learned to be true. I'm going to read that again. The Church of Satan was one of the front organizations for an ancient body whose very existence has never before been imagined. Okay, so this was written in 2004. I don't think anybody outside of these circles was thinking anything like this at that time. Not as far as I was aware of. I certainly wasn't. But I was a fucking socialist back then anyway, so what would I know? But this is what we have learned in our efforts to understand what's going on with the world, is it not? The Church of Satan was one of the front organizations for an ancient body whose very existence had never before been imagined. I mean, that's exactly true. If you want more information on some of its past and most influential members, you could do worse than study the late J.P. Morgan, James MacDonald, and Renee Hardy, the Kennedys, including Jackie, Irving Berlin, Groucho Marx, Elvis Presley, not the king, Garner, Ted Armstrong, Sammy Davis Jr., yeah, we knew that, Ronald Reagan, not surprising, Edward Heath, can't quite remember who that is, Thomas Planter de St. Clair, or search amongst the bushes. Okay, somebody's got jokes. I learned and reflected the glamour of the black arts, divination, dark meditation, sacrifice, sexual vampirism, talismans, voodoo dolls, and sex magic. My life was one of calculated excess and dazzling fulfillment. Yeah, but would it have been if no one had seen you? I wonder. I smoked handmade... This is so boring. Handmade Partagas Cuban cigars. I'd rather have an American Spirit. I had a personal secretary who was happy to engage my every whim and find like-minded others if I wanted to change or had a colleague I needed to impress. I finished every day with a restaurant meal, a bottle of French champagne, and black mass orgy of unforgettable and unspeakable delight. Alright, now that we've gotten this far, I can say with confidence that this is the essay that Jay Dyer summarized in his very good video. I think it's actually a two-parter. I may not have. The other part may be on his website. So if that is the case, then I haven't seen all of it. I would like to have seen it all. But that's why we're reading it for ourselves, because I don't really feel like supporting him financially. The streets were more innocent, the people more naive. The American intelligence services were still involved in funding the occult, but their influence was more ingratiating than dictatorial. In any event, many of America's high-ranking military men were members of various satanic lodges or kindred organizations, often sensitive materials and powerful figures who operated from the comfort, safety, and anonymity of the Velvet Shadows were transported on U.S. and Australian Navy ships. When I was in the Navy, we always had a rather lavish and empty berthing, which means place to sleep. And I used to sneak in there and take naps, but sometimes we would transport people that, well, often sensitive materials and powerful figures who operated from the comfort, safety, and anonymity of the dark velvet shit. I swear to God, every time he says velvet, I'm thinking of Oprah's pussy. Were transported on, okay, oil tankers were another favorite. Another favorite, yeah. Those are gross, though. Materials, and indeed people, have been concealed and lost on oil tankers for years. Yes, absolutely. Remember, this was in the 70s when he capitalizes the 70s, which is weird, and writes it out. When America's organized crime syndicates were establishing the narcotics markets of the Western world, Australia included. Oh, here we go. I knew her as Lilith. I know her as Lilith, a high priestess of an ultra-conservative Black Order of Typhon. Hers was the easy smile of a true neurotic and the body of an angel. This is so fucking teenage vampire novel. Her long, cruel fingernails were enameled in the chic and expensive titillations. Her fingernails were enameled in titillations? Gay. Uraglanists, that's weird. I don't know what that is. What? Let's see. Let's see what that is. This video is going to be so fucking long, but I have to know what this word means. Copy. Pasta. Oh, it's some kind of medical thing. Urolagnia, as part of sex, is supposed to be a consensual, enjoyable thing. Okay, I'm done. Weirdos worshipped at her feet and obeyed her every sadistic command. They were not the only ones. Her clientele included the top end of town, and she frequented the boardrooms and bathrooms of power with an essence of mystery, wealth, and alluring sluttiness. Oh, I'm surprised he would use such a northern English word that won her the attention and influence of very many. This is so fruity. I first met her at a stately home in an inner Sydney suburb at one of the regular black masses held to strengthen the bonds of lust, occult knowledge, and perversion. Oh. I wish I could find out what I would have thought of this as a teenager. Would I have been like, ugh? Yeah, I probably would have. There she was, indulging the devil's faithful. Not corny. Teaching and being videoed in... Okay, I'll try to focus. Teaching and being videoed for the 1970s black market that existed in underground extreme porn, bestiality, pedophilia, body wastes, and pain. After her services to the Dark Lord, she told me over a reefer, what a goofball, and thorough exhaustion that she was only 17 and had met her master. He had given her a mission. All right, now I find that a little bit dubious, because these people are against drugs. Real Satanists are against drugs. They're not into it because it makes you weaker. All right, they're straight edge. All right, you thought weirdo Christians were the only ones who are straight edge. No, these people are super straight edge. I think it is permissible. They consider it permissible to use a drug if it's given to you. All right, so that so it was the 70s and reefer is passed around. But that is something to look out for. These people are supposed to be very fucking straight edge. Don't drink, don't smoke, what you do, it must be something inside. Although through exhaustion, that she was only 17 and had met the master. Alright, I'm going to restart my camera before I forget. And I'm back. Lilith was a child from one of Sydney's more self-conscious suburbs. Private school educated and with a future in her father's business. She sacrificed herself to help establish what is considered today by those in the know to be the most powerful and important satanic organization in the world. The group comprises some of the most educated, wealthy, corrupt, and corrupting people that have ever existed. And they operate out of Sydney, Australia, but their influence is intentional. See, it is okay to start a sentence with the word "and." It is okay to start a sentence with the word "and." It transpired that she has been flown to the United States to be tutored and initiated into what was at that time Anton LaVey's underground satanic sisterhood of professional women with an aptitude for carnality and a conscience to match, the Ordo Cave Lupum. Oprah's pussy. Ugh. Her high school teacher, an adept in the black arts, had spotted Lilith while she was still only a school... That is such a stupid fucking name. That is such a stupid fucking name. That is so... Boop! Evil girl name! Okay, sorry. While she was still only a school... It was a long time ago, maybe. It wasn't so trite as it is now. Anyway. Like all Satanists, he believed that truth and salvation could be found through the exploration of repressed human needs. That pornography gave joy and joy gave strength. Well, through his dedication and perverse ability, he had secured her cooperation to begin her new education for her assigned task of political intrigue and influential debasement. All right, now we're getting into Jeffrey Epstein stuff, right? After completing her education with the OCL, Lilith was tutored by an English gentleman who I knew as Pindar, which probably means penis. I have highlighted this man in several of my previous books. I never met him, but I worship the true father of their statutory heir. Whatever. His were the Irish mysteries of degradation, and when his name was ever mentioned, Lilith would often laughingly say, "Rosy red cheeks of the little children." Lilith procured children... Alright, this is going to get nasty. So, I'm going to get some more coffee and get yourself a stick to bite on. Alright. Lilith procured children to satiate the debased lusts of many Satanists. They were taken from single girls by promises for a fee or occasionally simply stolen. Babies were bred for their various purposes by Broodmares, young unemployed girls who were paid to hand over their produce. Sometimes this magical pornography was filmed, sometimes children died. Once you have seen a young child crucified or a baby kicked to death, you are and can never be the same again. The most disturbing aspect of the Black Masses held in Sydney was and remains the ease with which victims were and continue to be obtained, and the lack of any effective interest by the police. Okay, and I can attest to that personally. Although a number of police commissioners from various states were members of the order, this is not to suggest that Satanists are simply perverts or child killers. The Alpha Lodge, to which I was a member, placed a great deal of emphasis upon magic. Both in theory and practice, demons were evoked and dispatched, sigils made and sacrifice, and the letting of blood encouraged. In this regard, many who bask in their own limited knowledge believe that Aleister Crowley is the father of modern manifestations of Satanism, but this is incorrect. Perhaps Crowley is the grandfather of the modern left-hand path groups, but their stepfather is Peter James Carroll, the founder of the Chaos Magic School. There are a number of reasons for this, and various black lodges within Australia have developed from their earliest 20th century reliance upon recruiting from fringe Masonic groups through high magic in the 1920s, low magic in the 1960s and 70s, to their current prospective candidates from amongst chaos magic practitioners who are generally young, ambitious, enthusiastic, energetic, and destined by their lifestyle choices to the shadowy world of Satanism. Glad to see he's at least cleaned up his language a bit. A number of upfront esoteric agencies in Australia and elsewhere are operated by black magicians, yet brothels and pornography comprise only a small financial part of the international satanic empire. Most of the money comes from drugs, the CIA, sophisticated blackmail, money lending, and currency trading. Satanists of the highest order are behind a number of wealthy conservative, new right Christian churches and organizations in America. These are some of contemporary Satanism's best cash flow enterprises, mostly indirectly, and allow mass indoctrination and networking. The aim of the Alpha Lodge remains illiteracy rates in the Western world. The aim of the Alpha Lodge remains illiteracy rates in the Western world. That's a badly written sentence. Of at least 60% by 2010, and the destruction of at least 70% of the globe's population by the year 2030. All right, and they're working on that right now. All governments count on their sheeple to respond in typical infantile fashions, including unconsciously identifying with a more powerful force even if it enslaves, brutalizes, and humiliates them. Government. Most Australians perform so badly in the role of adult that they rarely achieve complete satisfaction from this process. It is the weak who must tell you they are strong. In this regard, the infiltration of the United States by Satanists, which began in the 1970s, has paid off extremely well already, as has the career of Henry Kissinger. It was Henry Kissinger who proposed the use of fundamentalist Christianity to bring about war, firstly in the Middle East, then globally. Really? I mean, it's hardly a novel concept. In this, he was aided by a number of American presidents subsequent to Richard Milhous Nixon, handing over the reins to Gerald Ford, who was always one of ours. Not hard to believe. As the headquarters of international Satanism is Sydney. Really. You know what? I just want a visual. I just want to see what comes up in Google Images when I search Sydney, Australia. It's a quirk I have. I mean, it's very aesthetically intense. There's the I can't remember what that's called, that strange concert hall, massive bridges, huge ships parked frighteningly close to well-developed areas, that doesn't mean anything. As the headquarters of international Satanism is Sydney, Australia, it's not surprising to learn that Norman Lindsay, a former magus of the order, is considered a satanic saint. Norman Lindsay, 1879 to 1969, was a famous Australian artist and writer. Indeed, there are a number of flourishing secret shrines dedicated to him and his memory throughout Australia and the United Kingdom. Every equinox, there are human sacrifices dedicated to him, and the subtle perverted influence his painting and children's literature continues to have. Really. Similar shrines exist in America under Henry Kissinger's authority, but he has altered both the structure and subtle ethos of the American Alpha Lodge shrines. It was Lindsay who taught that every political solution leads to more complex and involuted problems, and don't we know that is the truth. He counseled that the public is not concerned with satanic manipulators, but only with petty criminals and little issues which affect their insignificant lives directly. Well, we are different, aren't we, my doves? As the status quo is maintained by the masses, it gets heavier the deeper it sinks and the greater its fears. The people cannot succeed or achieve, and so must sink deeper and hold on more strongly. The fact that for most people the days repeat endlessly until death relieves them speaks volumes about the subhuman condition. You think you're living this way by mistake? Kissinger refined Hitler's terror technique into the more subtle and powerful tension technique, building tension in society and then finding a scapegoat. Dark path adepts do this in insignificant ways until they have the power and ability to move and direct people in more gross and hideous behaviors. In Australia recently, the business activity statement for taxation purposes and the immigration debate have worked exceptionally well. The war on terror has also been of incalculable international influence, even more so than LaVey's Satanic Bible continues to be. The rhetorical facade for George's presidency may be Christian, but the plan is otherwise, yes, as we know. And for all of the new arrangements the sheeple have adopted, it was still safer to walk the streets in the Second World War than it is now. This is true of all the capital cities of the combatant nations. True and true. If you doubt the influence of Satanism in the modern world, consider the following issues. According to the World Bank, Australia is the wealthiest or second wealthiest after South Africa nation on earth. No one knows the full extent of Australia's natural resources, that is true, and yet the living standards of Australians is getting worse each year. While Australians are among the most highly taxed people in the world, we are quickly heading towards third world nation status. I don't know that to be true, but it certainly could be true, especially now. Who owns and controls the Reserve Bank of Australia? Hint, it is the same people who own the American Federal Reserve and the Bank of England. Yes, that is not a surprise. I hope he tells us. Why do overseas-owned companies pay so little taxation in Australia? And why does the Australian government, of whichever political persuasion, allow overseas mining conglomerates to rape our environment and give Australians back next to nothing in return? Why was fluoride put into Australia's water supply, and why is it impossible to have it removed? Jesus, is it? Are you seeing a pattern here? Why is the media of the free world so heavily controlled and their shamefaced relationship to government so symbiotic in 2004? Why have the educational standards of the Western world been forced to dumb down, a process accelerated in the 1980s by both Spielberg and Lucas at the instigation of the Australian Alpha Lodge? Spielberg and Lucas. Really? How so, I wonder? The movies? I mean, clearly being overly fascinated with Star Wars is unhealthy. But is that the only way? I don't know. Why has multiculturalism been foisted upon the first world with the exception of Japan? And who was behind the September the 11th operation? Which country's intelligence agency supplied the WMD story which caused the Iraq invasion? Hint, it was not a Christian or Islamic nation. China? The fact is, the Alpha Lodge politicians or political advisors appreciate that if they pretend to respect the rights of the sheeple and feign interest in their concerns, even though most realize that this is a ruse, they will go along with the programs and policies because it is the line of least resistance. The democratic process allows them to express some of their frustrations, reduces the pain of their pent-up depression and aggression, while ensuring that nothing changes. You can see the same representative democracy political system everywhere it has been implemented. Sheeple always use reason and logic to justify their whims, so the Alpha Lodge initiate is taught to speak in moderation while convincingly offering miracles. It is only a matter of waiting for the media to generate the slogan that the government should do something, and the governments everywhere and of all political persuasions always will. You see, conservatives know this. They don't know why it's happening, but they know that it's happening. This type of progressive demoralization of a country. They know this. They just lack the imagination to see what's behind it. Australian Satanists have always been on the forefront of high-quality videos and DVDs devoted to kiddie porn. Sheeples are such that although they scream about the importance of justice, it is of no interest unless they are in some way harmed. Their morality is that of the herd. For the more that sheeple feel isolated yet together, the easier it is for Satanists to reign. Provide the subjects with the forbidden, and they feel fragmented, weak, guilty, and often worthless, all of which the master Satanist employs for their own ends. In Australian-produced pedophile entertainment, certain avant-garde features, maybe that's a misspelling or maybe it's an Australianism, avant-garde features predominant sexual frenzy, degrading treatment, filth, coprophilia, getting turned on by shit, torture, rape, and death. Once again, I do not promote, endorse, approve, or even remotely enjoy any of this material. I am not reading it for pleasure. I am not reading it for kicks. I am not reading it for fun. I'm reading it for the education of myself and those who take the time to look at my videos. That is all. All of this is carefully crafted and augmented by aphrodisiacs and violence. Often the women involved are far worse than the men. This is something we've learned as well, that female abusers are often much more cruel than male abusers. Little boys agonized by the cruel fingers, long tapered fingernails, teeth, cigarettes, and perversions of ravishingly beautiful and debased female practitioners who are without restraint and have been maddened with heartless pride. Genital torture and castration are a constant theme. I will never forget the heartfelt sobs, desperate pleas, blood, tears, and screams induced by the many little boys by the agonizing use of alligator clips, the application of the strap, the whip, the dildo, knee, and the torment of electric shock. This wouldn't... I mean, I've listened to hundreds of hours of testimony of child survivors of satanic ritual abuse, and there's no doubt in my mind that this is absolutely true and real. We have to do something about this. We must. What was I going to say? Can't remember. Often Satanists advertise in, yes. I woke up this morning thinking about female cops. And the argument was on my mind that female cops are more dangerous than male cops. for the simple reason that a male cop can kick your ass, but a female cop has to shoot you. And we've been learning, if you've been paying attention to this sort of thing, we've been learning recently that women, female sexual abusers are often much more cruel than male sexual abusers. And I imagine, although I'm sure this description is not fulsome, does not describe the mindset of all of them, because frankly I'm sure I cannot imagine their mindset. But it seems to me that it's a feature of the female mind to assume that she is incapable of doing harm, and therefore doesn't feel the extent of the harm that she's doing while doing it. A woman is not as well acquainted with the dangerous side of her physicality as a man is, because a man grows up wrestling, falling in dirt, jumping BMX bikes off of ramps, and breaking bones. And men are much more physical. We understand our bodies on that level much. Anyway, I'm just trying to explain the inexplicable. Often Satanists advertise in Free Youth Culture Street newspaper. This provides them with a constant supply of young teenage hopefuls to recruit or exploit, or both. Often street kids are taken in, used, and discarded. It is only another missing teenager. Coffee shops, city entertainment complexes, and even evangelical youth-based churches are still used to this day to lure the innocent and not so innocent, their hearts full of broken dreams from broken homes. And in parentheses he writes, "Thank you, Lionel." Often members who have reached a certain grade whose task and ordeal it is to establish and maintain outer temple teaching orders as a recruiting ground for the traditional satanic lodges, do so with dazzling results. Candidates are accepted and accessed over the required time for character, imagination, and intellect, in that order. Debauchery is a science taught and maintained by programs, strict in nature and observance. Rituals are conducted, thought patterns established, relationships destroyed, and dependencies enhanced. Psychopaths are studied and emulated. Yes, that is something we've been learning is true, particularly of serial killers. Serial killers are they study serial killers with the fascination with which a child might study the predations of a spider. Some of the deadliest, most effective, and disarming assassins are women. Within the Alpha Lodges, they are worshipped as embodiments of the Dark Goddess, who is known by many names and is virgin still. The reptilian Moon Goddess is all her expressions, including Lilith. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Currently, the outer head of the Alpha Lodge, Australasia, I don't know what that is a very highly placed and successful federal politician whose name is Bestia. Ugh. My brother married someone named Bestie. I don't talk to my family anymore. The inner head of the Alpha Lodge, Australasia, is the highest Crown Service operative in the Commonwealth, having replaced former Crown Service agent and Greek princess Ekaterini, aka Sheila Fraser. Together, and with time, those at the highest echelons of international Satanism believe there is nothing they cannot achieve, and if you knew even half of what they have already done, you would agree. Ask yourself whether or not you have noticed a number of world tendencies coalescing around the inevitable. The social fabric is no longer made of whole cloth, and politicians everywhere are becoming more brazen and extreme in their prescriptions, and accomplishments should long ago have left little pause for thought, but it didn't then and doesn't now. The modern media is a pastiche of sex and soft eroticism. The Western world's drinking water has been laced with chemicals that exert powerful effects over time. Filter your water, people. Filter your water. For God's sake. For the sake of the God that lives within you. Filter your precious water. And talk to your water. Talk kindly to your water. Filter it. Let it sit and rest before you drink it. Rates of depression, suicide, incest, and bank interest continue to rise, but no one bothers to join the dots. Join the dots, indeed. What do all of the following people have in common? Norman Lindsay, Sir William McCann, Garfield Barwick, Lionel Murphy, Rosalind Norton, Clyde Cameron, and Steffi Bartholomew. I'm ashamed to say that none of those names ring a bell for me. From where do more Australians get their news and why? What is Michael Aquino's interest in Australia's Pine... I know that's a name I should know. Australia's Pine Gap facility, and why is discussion of the base's use and purpose inadmissible within Australia's polite society and media? Well, my viewers and fellow conspiracy theorists know the answer to that question. It's because people can't handle subjects like this. They can't handle it. That needs to change. Pine Gap is a major reptilian underground base near Alice Springs, operated by both Australia and the United States. It is one of the key locations for the Echelon spying and surveillance network that includes Menwith Hill in the UK. The late Michael Aquino was U.S. Army officer and mind control operative MK Ultra. Right, that's where I know that name. Who founded the Temple of Set as a satanic church, and leaving Anton LaVey's Church of Satan. See The Biggest Secret. I'm going to have to. I believe in one prince, Satan, who reigns over this earth, and in one law which triumphs over all. That's foolish. Okay. I believe in one temple, our temple to Satan, and in one world which triumphs, and one word which triumphs over all, the word of ecstasy. And I believe in the law of Aeon. I believe Carl Jung wrote a book called Aeon. God damn it, I'd have to look into that. Which is sacrifice, and in the letting of blood for which I shed no tears, since I give praise to my prince, the fire giver, and look forward to his reign and the pleasures that are to come. My man, you're just lucky you're dead. Because your master hates you as much as he hates the rest of us. You fucking retard. See, these people are stupid. They are stupid and crazed. That's not to say that they aren't competent. They are and can be quite talented, quite effective, obviously, quite intelligent in the common way of that word is used. But they're extremely immature, emotionally immature, and spiritually immature. They're like 7th graders. They're all a bunch of fucking 7th graders. Depraved, overgrown 7th graders. A number of Crown Service agents in Australia were relieved on the evening of the 19th of December 1967. A number of the President's men in Australia were quietly celebrating as the clock struck midnight on the 11th of November 1975. Both intelligence agencies had relations which were... My throat's getting dry. Which were still trespassed by the ghost of Dr. Ward. Both reacted to these events because of Australian Satanism. In the first case, because HRH, Queen Elizabeth II, would be saved embarrassments, and the second because Gow Whitlam was not one of them. On this point, I am in no doubt. Sir John did his duty to the princess and inner head of the Alpha Lodge, Australasia, and Sir Garfield explained it. Alright, I'm going to get a drink of water. Start my camera over. Some quick advice about the proper treatment of water. If you cannot get verifiably clean water from another source, from a source other than your sink, then do this. Every morning, turn the tap on full blast, let it run for 1 minute. Hot water. Then turn it off. All right? When you take water to be filtered, run the tap very slowly. So during the night, the lines corrode. All right? So you want to blast all that corrosion out, as much of it as you possibly can. And then the water that you take after having done that purge should be run slowly into your receptacle. Slowly, so that you're not abusing the water, but also so that you're not blasting out any more as many contaminants from the line, okay? Then gently pour your water into a receptacle to be filtered. It should be gravity fed. It should be a good 5-stage filter like Zero Water. I use Zero Water, and the result is delicious. You should let your water sit before you drink it, at least 20 minutes. All right? When you sit with your water, it's advisable to sit with your water for at least 5 minutes. And project positive feelings at your water. All right? Purge the line. Tap it slow. Filter it. Let it sit. Regard it with love. And drink your water with appreciation. Do these things. Alright, where were we? Gal William is the only Australian Prime Minister to be dismissed by the British Queen in her role as Australia's head of state. She did this through her Governor-General Sir John Kerr amid a manipulated constitutional crisis in 1975. Sir Garfield Barwick, Chief Justice of the High Court, advised Kerr to remove Whitlam. Not being a Satanist is bad for political careers. Most people do not know what J.W. Howard's first overseas trip as Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Australia was to receive his 33rd Masonic degree. For in matters of his true faith, he manifests a decidedly disillusioned romantic apprehension. His is the perfect example of parallel lives and a compliant media disillusioned, compliant media well and truly out of their depth. The same could not be said for Harold and his parties and the fact that people were noticing, and indeed Sir William was invited. Alright, I need to get coked up on coffee, so here we go. Oh, get that medicine in there. You have little, if any, idea of the history, connections, and the network of Australia's sinister lodges, the temples within them, or their adherents and puppets. Why are some politicians spectacularly successful and others dogged at every step? Well, how was the New York-based public relations firm paid by John for doing such a good job in the ellipses elections? I don't know. Has anyone bothered to check the Commonwealth of Australia's Department of the Treasury, and would they know what they were looking for? Has anyone bothered to check the Commonwealth of Australia's Department of the Treasury records, and would they know what they... I became outerhead of the... I don't know how much just got missed. Has anyone bothered to check the Commonwealth for Australia's Department of Treasury records, and would they know what they were looking for? I became outer head of the Alpha Lodge, Australasia. In the same year, a meteoric rise to power brought a change of federal government with the Prime Minister, whose relationship to Satanism was tenuous and pedestrian at best. But then again, he liked to play around, and a number of our special people were happy to accommodate him for a price. He craved respect and understated admiration and received both from us for the efforts he expended. I left the Alpha Lodge as best as one can and tried to reclaim a more mundane, if no less ingratiating lifestyle. I operated a media company publishing anti-Christian tractates, political pamphlets, and pornographic videos, working for a number of organizations internationally. The extreme right wing of Britain had recently been infiltrated by a very old and isolated left-hand path tradition, and this sinister development augured well for the Alpha Lodges, although today David Myatt is considered more of a prophet than a representative of hebdomadry magical system. While the Order of Nine Angels pursues a more open approach in the United Kingdom and increasingly in the United States of America and Australia, we still work just out of view. Alright, I'm going to switch my battery. The strength of international Satanism continued to rise as its oldest families continued to wither. In the real world, money gives power, and those best placed to dictate the money market always win. Yet their magnetism and glamour have faded, and their futures are more tenuous than at any other time. Their collective days may be drawing to an end. Their most enduring legacies will be the power structures they created and the relationships facilitated. Their funding of diverse groups dedicated to the destruction of Christianity is a story never to be told. Their most successful recent campaign was the Please God Don't Let the Priest Rape Me Again effort in the 1980s to date, and the promotion of lilac seminaries. Modern post-1980 Satanism was the result of some hard-learned truths and well-practiced procedures. Everyone knows that we are becoming more obvious. There are decreasing reasons to hide. The world of high fashion, always a glittering ephemeral chimera, became an overtly successful recruiting ground for sweet young things and with a daring and glamorous nature. Multi-billionaires increasingly sought the spiritual comfort and insider information of the satanic Alpha Lodges. What most people do not realize is that Satanism is a ritually based practice, and that this repetition has, over time, left strong impressions upon the morphic field. This resonates security and comfort within the left-hand path's true adherents. Politically, the libertarianism of Twain that permeated Satanism gave way to the realization that the sheeple do not want freedom. They are happy to build their own pens. 2,000 years of Christianity has left them domesticated. So Satanism has taken to itself right-wing positionings, farther and farther afield. In any event, all bank vaults swing open to the right. All leaders are dictators, and the sheeple eat from their hand just the way they like to. Satanism is now free of its earlier hallucinations, fully accepts the pathetic nature of the human condition, wrapped as it is in the gaudy packages of superstition. Satanism finally managed to infiltrate the major left-wing and middle-road political parties on May Day 1997. Another group long ago bought the American Congress, so the Alpha Lodge is concentrated on the Republican Party, and this has paid some very high dividends. Currently, the U.S. federal government dances to our tune, a couple of steps removed, if you know what I mean. Within the left-hand path, Satan is the supreme prince. The hierarchy of all hells begins with the prince. He is the other. The other. academic leftist liberal language. The bright fire giver and illuminator. He is the only God who cares. Satanism is a spiritual Darwinian theory based on predation. Devoted Satanists dictate themselves and their sex acts to their dark lord. Prayers are said, chants intoned, or invocations recited as the basis of obtaining the blessings of hell. Unknown, if not always unsuspected, infernal temples exist in every major city throughout the world, Vatican City included. Every hour of every day, every night, people are knowingly engaged in Satan's service, human sacrifice, whether ritually and quicker or slowly and degradingly over time, all is harnessed to specific ends. Politicians are introduced by a carefully graded set of criteria and situations that enable them to accept that their victims will be our little secret. Young children, sexually molested and physically abused by politicians worldwide, are quickly used as sacrifices. In Australia, the bodies are hardly ever discovered, for Australia is still a wilderness. Overseas, cremation is the favored method, and although the satanic lodges of Australia have access to crematoria when needed, this is surprisingly rare. Believe it or not, many bodies are dumped over the side every week in a number of isolated bushland settings. The emerging set of satanic leaders is young, savvy, competent, and heartless. They are masters and mistresses of their emotions and their intellect. They are involved in business, politics, the legal profession, and the arts. They are affluent, mobile, and stylish examples to the next generation, and therefore to the next generation of Satanists that power is glory, lust is nobility, and liberty is the highest ideal of the new world man and woman. They use debasement of their victims as a ritual power to themselves and to their deities. Often their victims are made to suffer in any number of situations. All of them are dedicated to creating the new man and woman of the future and to surpassing the old ones. Beginning in Sydney in the late 1980s was a now international underground of sadomasochistic society founded by Satanists. Victims are abused to death in grotesque rituals held in secluded chambers throughout the global metropolis and never-ending suburbs and bewildered housing estates. Although many who attend are unaware of anything except their ability to fulfill special needs and cultivated tastes, all of these gatherings are satanic in nature and magical in purpose. This dark, ultra-secretive society has been used to corrupt and destroy, to distill fear and ensure petrified silence. Remember the family of South Australia. Ever wondered why so many people conveniently die from electrical fires? Bodily juices of all descriptions are sacred to Satanists and can be used for magical purposes. The advent of sadomasochism as an accepted form of expression is due to the efforts of Satanists in subverting normalcy and inverting mainstream Christian values. The S&M Society was used as recruitment ground for some of the most perverted geniuses I ever met, and with the advent of the World Wide Web, extreme, hardcore bathroom sex came into its own subgenre to be taken seriously. Today, such stars as Alexa Cage and her growing number of friends are enjoying careers that would have been inconceivable but a few short years ago. Indeed, many toilet sex starlets are committed Satanists and Alpha Lodge members or affiliates. By their presence in the world, does the Prince of Darkness achieve his aim of exporting enlightenment into the objective universe. Concomitantly, restroom magic continues to develop its own left-hand path, techniques in which the convenience serves as a representation of and chalice unto the goddess, the reptilian moon goddess. By way of only one example, today in co-educational facilities throughout the Western world, bathroom sex and flute playing are rampant across all age groups. Thank you, High Priestess Monica and White Witch Fiona. Think of how much effort the liberal establishment has put into making it possible for transgender men to go into women's bathrooms. And think about that recent case for which Steven Crowder was temporarily banned from YouTube. Now I'm going to get my camera in a state to finish this up, and I'll be with you again in a momento. Alright. The people of the world are easy to manipulate. Homo sapiens are herd animals, after all. It's all color and movement when it comes to the masses. Give them an election with no policy choices, and for the most part they are happy. Allow their children no real prospect of success. Inhibit their natural drives, particularly their sex drives. Limit their options. Coarsen their choices. And society, such as it still is, quickly falls apart into predetermined categories. No families, just weak individuals free to do as they're told. Satan is a wonderful systems man. Already there are rampantly individualistic spiritualities spreading throughout the world. Souls and agendas are kidnapped with ease and Luciferian style. Rock and roll gods and goddesses captivate the hearts and minds of the next generation. The boldness of the black metal musicians, magicians, and mantras they spread still excite and amaze me, even after my achievements. Advertising continues to chip away at acceptable standards, such that nowadays almost anything is realized as being eminently possible. The foreign policy of the world's only superpower is directed from Israel, and our work is now running on autopilot. Don't watch commercials. They are an affront to the decency and the proper condition of your mind. They are an insult to what you should be. They are designed to be this way. Don't you feel that? Do not watch commercials. Mute them if you have to watch something that shows them. And do something else while they play. Don't look at them. Don't listen to them. Do not let them dull your sensibilities. This is something I've always known. Commercials are designed to make the slow erosion of dignity acceptable. Don't you feel that? The foreign policy of the world's only superpower is directed from Israel, and our work is now running on autopilot. The Alpha Lodge has taken steps to try to ensure that after the next war, the tradition is maintained in the intervening centuries, before civilization, as we know it, begins again. The Great Reset. At that time, Satanism will be in the only religion and science. Satanism will be in the only remaining religion and the only remaining science. Okay, that makes sense. We have secured the texts, books, relics, and magical weapons necessary for our Dark Lord, and I see the storm clouds gathering. Ritual activity is increasing. Social structures are almost totally eroded. The sheep will gather for their slaughter. Vindex walks amongst us now, and very few know or think that they do. Just going to copy and paste that. Find out what that shit is. Excuse me. The other. Remember, that's a word that SJWs use. They warn of obsession with or loathing of the other. Don't they? They have no idea what they're saying. Beyond that attracting, transforming, forbidden essence, contradictory defiance, challenging in its purest, answering our typical shape-shifting form. The fascination that creates, nourishes, destroys, and redeems. The Prince of the Earth, the Lord of the Air, the darkness of the deep, and the God of fire. Prince of the Earth, Lord of the Air, darkness of the deep, and the God of fire. The Prince of the Earth, Lord of the air, darkness of the deep, and the God of fire. Remember that. I'm gonna put it in a notepad. Why? Why is this important? Why is this important to remember? Why? So that they can't sneak it by us when they say this shit in front of us. The majestic potency, force, presence, power, magic of the name of the known by many, magic of the name of one known by many, intoxicating period, subversive period, eternal period. This is gross. The other, that arrogant, inspirational quest and elegant undercurrent to a superior life of overcoming. Everything you have ever dreamed of, and more than your deepest nightmares. The alarming, awful, sinister, dispossessed delight of the empowerment of knowing. The triumph of ecstasy reflected in your imagination, honor, genius, and terror, rebellion, liberty, the other, that banished suspicion and apprehensive silence, trespassing in disguise, a question and an accusation, the fear and celebration, the shadow and horror unknown of death and life, of eons, Carl Jung, past and potentiality, of willing and becoming and exalting in this life, ellipses, hail myself that I seek to be, hail Satan, it is revealed individually, I hate accidental rhyme, to those who can bear it. It is revealed individually to those who can bear it. And that is the end of Frater 616's final missive. So, I ask you, is any of that difficult to believe? Since the events of 2015 until now, since the events of 9/11 until now. The Patriot Act was written in the 70s. And we are now seeing the Patriot Act being used for its original intention, to label the enemies of totalitarianism as terrorists. All right? What is the FBI doing with these people who are confronting school teachers with their secretly teaching children CRT and putting child pornography in school libraries? What are they doing? They're calling them terrorists. So let there be no doubt that there is a global conglomerate of power interests who worship evil. Let there be no doubt. Just look at the world and you can see that. But listen to this. 15, 16, 17-year-old deathbed confession, and see how much more closely today's world matches his words than the world of 2004. That's how far down the rabbit hole we've gone since then. All right. That's all I've got, guys. God bless you. Put together your survival food collection. Do it now. Obtain camping equipment so that you can cook without access to power. All right? Do it now. Do it now. Talk to you later, guys.